Sail cruising seems to be quite a popular thing at the moment, especially I think because of the popularity of a lot of big sailing channels, and a lot of people seem to be very curious about how much money you need to be spending every month to sustain a lifestyle whilst sailing. So we thought we'd take some time to share what we've learned, both from our own experience and from people who we've met along the way, about how much money you need to spend to go sailing. Now, everyone, obviously the same as on land, has a different idea of what a comfortable lifestyle is. And we've met a huge variety of different lifestyles that people are living along the way. On one hand, there's people with large, luxurious catamarans who are staying in marinas a lot and probably spending upwards of $2,000 or euros or pounds per month. And then we've also met people who are living very frugally on small boats at anchor all the time and spending under 500 a month. The way we work our budget is that we have a minimum spend that we could stick to, and then if we earn more than that, because we earn money as we go along, then we can spend that money. So our dead minimum spend per month is around 500 euros, and it would be pretty tricky for us to live a decent life on anything less than that. But we could sustain a pretty okay existence on 500 a month. Because we normally earn more money than that, we typically spend around 700 a month, and the extra money typically goes on things like upgrades to the boat, or going out for dinner more, or just generally living a less kind of frugal life, being a bit more free with money. Because we anchor out most of the time, our main expenses really are just food and fuel, and then odd things like shampoo and toilet roll and stuff like that. But the majority of our money goes on food. I think the key to achieving a cheap sail cruising lifestyle is to be as self-sufficient as possible. So our boat really doesn't need marinas. We have self-sufficient electrical system, for example, so we don't need to go into a marina to use shore power, and we have a phone contract that allows us to use data, so we can use as much data as we want, really up to a limit, without having to go to somewhere to get Wi-Fi. And really that's the key to staying out of marinas, and I think staying out of marinas is the key to not spending a lot of money while you're sail cruising. And if you get used to anchoring out, then going into a marina doesn't seem like a luxury, because you can't swim or anything like that, and the view is not normally anywhere near as good, and you're cramped in with all your neighbours. I think very soon you get to view anchoring as the nicer way of going sail cruising and the default option, and the great thing about that is that it's free. Another thing to think about if you're trying to keep sail cruising fairly cheap is to keep things as simple as possible, and there's very little on Kittiwake that I can't fix myself. The electrical system and the plumbing system, for example, are incredibly simple and easily fixed. So once you've got your kind of base budget, which is influenced mainly by the amount you want to spend on food and mooring your boat, then you need to think about how much you're going to spend on other things on shore, like attractions, renting cars, eating out and things like that. And then there's other things as well which are kind of dependent on where you're located in the world. So in some places you might need to spend money on visas or health insurance. Luckily for us, we're both European, and living on our boat in Europe means that we don't have to worry about visas or health insurance. But if we were to go to the Caribbean, for example, then we might have to worry about it a bit more. And if we were going to go to the United States or the USA areas of the Caribbean, then we'd probably need to seriously consider putting some money aside for health insurance. If you want to figure out how much money you need to go sail cruising, then a good place to start is looking at how much you spend on fixed costs in your life on land. So if you look at how much you spend in a supermarket and how much you spend on going out for meals, then that's a good kind of indication of your base budget. Now if you go out for dinner like once or twice a week, then you won't probably want to change that when you move onto a boat. So it's worth factoring that in and then allowing for that to check that you can afford it. And then on top of that, obviously figure out how much you want to spend on marinas, how much you want to anchor out, all of these different factors, and then just add them all together and figure out from that how much you're likely to spend per month. A really important thing is to make sure you're honest about your budget and make sure that it's within your means, that you can afford it. Don't set off with a budget of 500 a month and then spend $2,000 a month because you're constantly in marinas and going out for expensive meals, because pretty soon you'll end up having to go back to land life to earn more money, and no one wants to do that. And also remember that whatever your budget is, you'll be sharing the same anchorages and the same views with everyone else. So whether you spend 500 or $2,000 per month, really you get the same out of it.
It's impossible to plan everything out when living on a sailboat. For example, you may have planned to live at anchor for a whole month, but a sudden storm or an urgent repair mean you need to stay in a marina or a boatyard for a few nights. Make sure you have a contingency set aside for emergencies like these. If you'd like to know more, we've written an in-depth article about liveaboard budgeting on our blog. And if you'd like to see what it's like to live on our small catamaran, check out our sailing channel where we're documenting our adventure.